Political and ideological confrontations to a fundamental problem for Bengaluru and its citizens. The city is already facing water shortages in several parts even before summer could fully begin, and people are forced to buy water tankers at exorbitant prices. With several parts declared drought hit in the state and its bustling capital stare at a hot and thirsty summer. Pratibha Raman with the details.
Even before summer sets in, every drop of water counts in Bengaluru. With depleting water at reservoirs and receding groundwater levels after a poor monsoon last year, people in several parts of the city have begun to feel the heat. Kavita from Horamau is among those who has begun spending a large part of her savings in water tankers, prices of which have shot up from 500 rupees for 5,000 litres to up to 2,000 rupees.
10,000 है मेरे समला, 6,000 है बड़ा का आपको 4,000 पकड़ ले मैं क्या करेंगे? कमाई सभी बच्चा को करना, पानी को देना, आप घर को भी मैं देखना, मैं अब क्या करना, काम भी होता चाहिए हमको.
First demand from most citizens forced to buy water is uniform price. But there are bigger issues to be addressed for a thirsty city. Bengaluru's lifeline is Kaveri water supply of 1,450 million litres per day. The city now also draws 700 million litres per day from around 10,000 borewells. With reservoirs and lakes drying up, there is now a shortage of around 1,650 million litres per day. And worst affected areas are KR-Puram, Horamau, Mahadevapura, RR Nagar and Whitefield. Across Karnataka, 223 of 236 taluks have been declared drought hit, and 7,082 villages are at the risk of facing water shortages. Desperate for solutions, the Karnataka government is now exploring the possibility of digging more borewells.
Some MLAs have suggested that there are about 1,500 feet of borewell has been drilled. Yesterday in my Janta Darshan program, to drill the same borewell at 5,500 meters more. That is also I am exploring the possibility. In some places we will have new borewell, in some places we will try to drill those old borewell.
We are talking about 1.3 crore people in Bengaluru, and still there is a deficiency of around 1,650 million litres per day. And that is why people have been demanding water. The parched areas of Greater Bengaluru and the people living over there are the ones who are suffering. With camera person Govind, Pratibha Raman in Bengaluru for NDTV.
Remember, water was an issue that we expected to stare at this year given the failure of the monsoons last year. Joining us now, S. Vishwanath, urban planner and civil engineer, who's one of Bengaluru's most respected water conservationists. Sir, thanks so much for speaking to us. You flagged off the issue several times in the past about Bengaluru potentially facing water issues eventually. We seem to be staring at a very difficult year this year, first up.
Definitely, the city is expanding geographically and in terms of population. The water that comes to the city comes in lump amounts and is static at 1,450 MLD for quite some time. So the balance which is met with groundwater is now under tremendous stress because the monsoons fade, the lakes don't have water, and the aquifers have dried up. Those who are dependent on groundwater are struggling the most.
Yes, those dependent on groundwater struggling the most, not the ones who are dependent on Kaveri. In fact, others have also argued that the dependence on the Kaveri water only seems to be increasing as far as the city is concerned.
Sure, we will get an additional 775 million litres per day from the Kaveri in the coming months, and so that should suffice for some time. But we'll have to do something about recharging our aquifers, keeping our lakes full so that we have enough and more water.
Right, and this year, in terms of what would be the prognosis as far as areas are concerned which don't have Kaveri water supply, which are dependent on borewell water, how do you see the situation as far as groundwater levels in the city at the moment?
So, One of the immediate measures we can take is to take the treated wastewater from some of our sewage treatment plants, which are of a very high quality. For example, the one at Jagpur or Kaban Park or in the V Valley. And tertiary treated wastewater can fill the lakes. That would be good enough when it reaches the aquifer to bring the water table up and then be able to be of service to the people. Many of the dry borewells could come to life. We need to look at wastewater as a resource and up the game with how we treat it and how we reuse it.
Important systemic measures needed because we've just had failure of one southwest monsoon. We had plenty of water before. We've got failure of one southwest monsoon last year, and we are staring at this situation this year. So I think there needs to be larger systemic thought put into how we are evolving as a city.
For sure. We have something called the integrated urban water management approach, in which we have to look at surface water, groundwater, rainwater, and treated wastewater in addition to the Kaveri water. Unfortunately, we are undercooked in terms of managing groundwater and treated wastewater as well as our lakes. We need to build our governance capabilities to integrate all these resources and make sure that we make a provision for drought years. This is not unexpected. Drought are common. 7 out of 10 years would be a low rainfall year. We need to be better prepared, and that would come from a governance and institutional tweaking of the framework we now apply for our city's water supply.
And at this moment, it's important to look at how lakes have completely receded in the city due to encroachment. Perhaps time to really address that as a core issue, because there are several city areas in the city which were built around lakes, but which have encroached upon the lakes, resulting in very low reserves.
Absolutely. But of the 210 lakes that we now have identified, of which 186 are alive, we need to do a quick job of protecting and filling them with wastewater. Also, especially in the periphery of the city, outside the boundaries of the metropolitan area, there are many lakes which need protection now. We cannot afford to lose them in the future, because this is where the dependence on groundwater is the most, and this is where the dependence on lakes, groundwater interface will be the highest. We need to be proactive, at least in the future. We have lost the past, but we need to win the battles of the future.
Right, important point that you make there. We may have lost the past, but it's important to recognize the importance of these issues in the future as we evolve certain areas in the city. Obviously, this year seems to be a difficult one that one is staring at. We'll hope for a monsoon to come in perhaps early to save the day for Bengalurians. Thanks very much, Mr. Vishwanath there. You've been campaigning on several of these issues for several years now, but it's in years like this, distress years like this, that these often come into focus, and perhaps one needs to address those at a systemic and long-term level.